How many of you have read a book that has changed your life? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about my book. I'm not saying my book's changing your life, but there is always that book that people have read that has either changed their mindset on something, their perspective, or their career. Like, literally, have you ever read a book and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I'm meant to be doing? This is. So today on the show, I've invited a very special guest. Actually, currently a client. We're doing some work behind the scenes, but she's not here today as my client, right? But that's how I know her. I like to give context as to how I know people. But today she's coming on the show with a very touching subject. So a warning here to anyone listening. This is a trigger warning. It can trigger something that has happened to you. It can trigger something that is happening right now, or that's you, or you know someone who it's happened to. So I just want to give you a full warning and disclaimer that this is a very sensitive subject. She's very, very bravely coming on the show to talk about it because of her experience and because of what she's been through. She has created a phenomenal mission and a phenomenal dedication to her career. She's dedicated herself to this path. It'll all make sense once I actually reveal, but I want her to tell the story herself. So without further ado, I just simply want to welcome you back onto the show, The Money Honey. This is the show that brings together and celebrates women in property, finance, and construction. But let's face it, celebrating doesn't mean that it's all hunky-dory all the time, that it's all, rainbows and flowers, right? Celebrating doesn't mean that we're always happy. Celebrating doesn't mean that we're always here to brag about the deals that we've just done. That's not celebrating, okay? So I try to balance out the talks on this show with not just the women who are like, oh yeah, I came into financial services and now I'm a senior mortgage broker, or now I'm in senior leadership. Oh yeah, now I'm a 7-figure business. Like, that's not the only thing we're celebrating. We also have to acknowledge and celebrate the hardships that women go through, the tough times that we all go through, men and women, and how we overcome them and what we do about them. Okay. So today it is a celebration. It is acknowledging what a phenomenally strong woman I'm about to bring on the show. Like, I did not know this about her story, and often you don't. The strongest people you meet often don't have that background that you may not know of. So the other lesson here before she comes on the show is, do not judge a book by its cover. We always hear that, don't we? And sometimes we label that person as strong and confident and bubbly. How many people do you know that are bubbly and strong and confident, and then you discover something about them, something that's really deep inside going on, or behind closed doors? So let's be kind, because every speaker that comes on the show, whether they are celebrating about a new trophy, a new big win, or they're celebrating overcoming a hurdle or a challenge, they're still being brave. Okay, so let's celebrate those people who are on this show. Now, the person that I'm bringing on the show today was once the youngest clinical nurse specialist in mental health and trauma in the UK. And she transitioned unexpectedly into the entrepreneurship world in 1999. She was inspired when I said, when you've read a book and that book has changed your life. This book for this particular person was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I've also read. And yes, it changed my whole perspective on how I saw money forever. Like, the way I saw money was completely radically changed. And so because of that book, she fell in love with the property investment world and entered property investment in 2003 and started to specialize in assisted sales to help those facing repossession. Another touchy subject, another sensitive topic, repossession. How often do you hear about brokers saying, oh, at auction, we bought this property. It was being repossessed. We put our money, no money down. We got our money out. We made $1 million. You're like, you just repossessed that property. Yeah, okay. You didn't repossess it. It wasn't you. It wasn't your problem. But actually, the backstory to that. I mean, how many, in the 10 years that I've been in specialist finance, I've seen a lot of repossessions, and it's not a nice subject. But she says, despite the seemingly perfect nursing career, she faced personal and financial turmoil. After a divorce, she reached a breaking point, and this is the bit I wish I didn't know, but now know, attempted suicide. So this dark moment that has happened in her life was a turning point, sparking a decade-long journey back to stability through consulting and property ventures. So today, your guest for today is Trish McGreer, and she's going to be telling us her story about how she now pays it forward in overcoming debt, despair, and how she trains others in overcoming that in their lives who might be facing repossession. So without further ado, I introduce to you Trish.
Hi there.
Hi Trish, how you doing?
I am fine, thank you. It's funny when you hear someone do an introduction to your life, and it always sounds a wee bit strange, doesn't it? Because it's you, but you still go, was that me? Did I do that? So yeah, I'm used to sort of talking obviously about my own life, but it's funny when you hear it from someone else's perspective as well. So yeah, thrilled to be here.
Well, and I'm thrilled to have you because obviously when I read this bio, when I originally invited you, I thought you were coming as Finance Capital, right? I thought you were coming in the guise as Mike, because obviously I'm working with Finance Capital right now. And then I received this bio and I'm like, who is this? Who is this person? I don't know. I didn't know this about you. And so doubly brave. Originally I just thought you were coming on and, being a brave female in finance, talking about you being in the industry. But now, knowing this introduction, I'm so honored that you would choose my platform to come and share this story with the listeners, because it's such a sensitive subject. And I really, really thank you for trusting me with this topic. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And as you said in the introduction, it's very topical. The financial crisis that we've been through, the pandemic that we've been through prior to that, and the war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis, is compounding the situation people are in financially. And what once was stable has become ever increasingly unstable. And in fairness, that was the situation I was in when I went through my own challenges. So it's not surprising to me that in the time that I've been doing this, we've been through several big financial upheavals. And every time that happens, I speak to more and more people who can identify with what happened to me. And I think it's part of demystifying it. I think we have to demystify some of and take away the stigma of financial challenges and indeed mental health. We're not quite there yet.
What needs to happen? What do we need to do?
I think the biggest thing, it's funny because again, in your introduction, and you talked about this idea that, the sun always shines on Instagram, doesn't it? The scenario that people see themselves in, because we want to be seen as successful. We want to be successful. We want to provide for ourselves and our families. That sometimes there's almost a shame, or we feel that if everything isn't perfect, people will judge us, or people won't want to work with us if we talk about challenges. And sadly, the word challenge has almost become superficial. Oh, I went through some challenges, but I'm okay now. Or I went through some challenges and I grew through them. And I think a lot of people can. A lot of people do grow through the challenges, but not on your own. Being in business is a lonely place anyway, because most of the people in the world have jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. I had a career at one point. But I think part of it is just opening up safe spaces. And I almost hate to use that phrase because it's very cliche, but open up safe spaces where people can talk about what's really going on in their lives. The the business challenges they have, the financial challenges they're having, and indeed how that sometimes affects not just your sense of self, but how it affects your relationships as well.
Now, tell me about your, what do you call it, a foundation? Is it your business? Is it a charity? Like, talk to me about.
So Repossession Rescue. So it came about because, as you said, I came into property, not specifically passionate about property, so please don't shoot me for saying that. But I came in on the back of having obviously spent, 10 years of my life trying to get back out of the mess that I had found myself in when I went through, separation and divorce and lots of other changes in my life. I had left the NHS at that point, and I didn't have a pension, if you like. I didn't have something that I could fall back on. I could have easily gone and stayed in the NHS, but something was calling me to something else, something different, something you might say bigger. So Repossession Rescue was simply a training course. I started off as doing some training, offering people some lived experience of being in that situation. And also lived experience as a professional mental health specialist. And these two things absolutely go hand in hand. People say, well, it's only money. But our money isn't just about our identity. It's about our sense of security. And when you're on shaky foundations emotionally, or in your relationship or in your business anyway, then money becomes a really big issue. So I don't think we should trivialize the impact that money has on people's sense of well-being. Money doesn't define you, but when you don't have any, believe you me, it sharpens your focus, and it can make life very, very painful. So Repossession Rescue was simply born out of people asked me, they'd heard me tell my story in the past, and they'd asked if I did any training. And at the time, I really only ever did a sort of wee bit of consulting, and I put together a simple training program mainly aimed at investors, because part of my story, that's both surprising and it's what I call the power of connection and pivotal moments. I'm a huge believer in pivotal moments in your life. And for me, when I'd sold my house, we sold the house, we didn't get repossessed, but we sold it and we were in negative equity. And the problem was then I ended up with a £20,000 loan and no house. And that just sucked. So my credit was rubbish. I needed to find somewhere to live. I found a little tiny cottage. And the investor was the guy that actually helped me find a sense of self-worth and purpose. Because effectively he agreed that if I did the house up and he decided to sell it at some point, he would sell it to me first. So effectively it was an option without there ever being a single piece of paper. So an investor helped me start again when no one else would. The local housing authority said I earned too much money to be considered for social housing. And because my credit was rubbish, it was very difficult to find somewhere to live. And it was a generous investor who enabled me to start again. So I came into the world of property knowing that investors aren't all bad people, and I think we get a bit of a bad press. So that's how the training came around. It was people were asking me, "What do you know about this stuff?" And I said, "Well, I'll put some brief training together." We trademarked the name, we trademarked the brand, and I wanted to create more than just a training course. I wanted people to feel that it was worthwhile, letting other people know that you're open for a discussion. Because, as I say, an investor helped me start again, and I think we can do a lot for others.
I love that. I really, really, that's such a beautiful message, because actually, having said, and I said, some investors thrive off a repossession because they find something of cheaper value, at an auction or something like that. And actually, there was a client of mine who spoke about a repossession where there was a private. So they saved them from going into repossession. So before they could even get repossessed, they were able to sell to a private investor, get their money a lot quicker, and pay off their debt and not go through that whole process, which probably saved that person from further anxiety and stress and turmoil. And probably it saved her credit in a little way. Like this particular
Yes.
client already had obviously entered this phase in her life because of, you know, poor financial decisions or situations. I don't know the full story, but actually being able to pay back, thanks to that property investor, being able to pay back some of that debt quicker, just saved her life. So yes, there are so many fantastic stories with property investors. You know, people who have money, it's about how you use it, right? Not
Absolutely.
money, it's how you use it.
Yeah. And
Yes.
like you said, it's not about saying don't go and get a bargain, don't go and cut a good deal. You know, the very first two properties I bought, they were bought at auction, but both had been repossessed. And one of the properties in particular, I went with a friend of mine who was much more experienced than me, and we walked into that property. And I remember going into the kitchen, and I opened the drawer of the kitchen, and in the drawer of the kitchen, there was a child's dummy. There were a few toys scattered around, but there were also the papers confirming that, you know, the eviction date. And I remember standing in the kitchen holding on to this kitchen drawer, and big tears were sort of rolling down my face. And my friend thought it was because I thought the house was a bit of a mess, and he was trying to reassure me. He said, "Trish, it's only cosmetic." And I'm like, that wasn't why I was weeping. I was weeping because I thought, you know, there but for the grace of God go I, because when it happened to me, you know, my little boy was 18 months old, you know, and so it kind of just thought, oh my God, my very first two houses both happened to be repossessed, and one of them really struck because there were children's toys around, and they'd obviously lost it. So as you say, it's not about not getting a bargain. And as you said, some of the stuff that I try and teach other investors is how to use our ability to almost bend time. Because if we can talk to the lenders, if we can talk to the solicitors involved, if we can negotiate on things like arrears, we can actually slow that process down or even stop it in its tracks, which gives people time to move out of the property in a way that saves them from the, let's say, the embarrassment, the sheer humiliation of a bailiff has come and you are out. I mean, bailiffs are very sensitive guys. They see this every day, but ultimately you lose your home. And for every single person I've spoken to in that scenario, the thing that is worse than losing your house is the idea that all of your neighbors are going to see that you're out, that you have been removed from the property. So giving someone the chance to sell faster and again agree a time scale for them to find somewhere to rent, that's what I do. And I said that is a worthy cause, because you still get the house, you still get a deal, and the people get to move out. And what's not good about that? When it happened to me, if someone had said, actually it's negative equity, but we'll take care of the mortgage for the next 10 years until the market recovers, I would have given them the keys. I would have given them the keys to my, lovely little brand new semi-detached house, and I would have let them rent it out to whoever they want in the meantime. But I didn't know then what I know now.
Yeah. So where does this, I mean, look, hindsight is a beautiful thing, isn't it? As they say.
Indeed.
So where does this journey begin? So repossession rescue, do you go to property investors first, or do you go to people, or do people who are going through repossession come to you first? Like, what's the journey, and at what point do you get involved?
Yeah. Everything in between. We've taken inquiries from people who are getting repossessed imminently. So we've had to show them how they can call an emergency hearing. And I've had investors who have said, I've got a deal, I've got a call, I've got an inquiry, and I actually know that that's going to happen, but I don't know how to handle it. So I don't bring sellers and buyers together, because there's a line to not be crossed there. But the guys that I teach how to do what I do, so the investors I teach how to do what I do, it means they can, do the training, finish the training, and show that they know what they're talking about. And then, we give them the opportunity, if they want to become part of the network, to actually show the emblem that they are part of the network. And that we ask everybody who joins, so it's a membership, we ask them to ensure they do 4 things. And this is kind of our, these are our 4 parts of what we call our pledge. The first thing is that all sellers should be signposted to legal advice, because when you're in that situation, you do need legal advice, and it doesn't stop you selling. You need financial advice. So in other words, you should have some kind of debt support, debt advice, even if it's just knowing where you can go for some impartial debt guidance. And then we talk about housing advice, because you've got to go and live somewhere. When you lose your home, you've got to find somewhere else to live. And there is a huge shortage of social housing, which leads you looking at the private sector. And if the private sector won't consider you because your credit's rubbish, you genuinely face the risk of being homeless. And the last one is mental health. So for everybody who joins, does the training, we say there are 4 things that we request everybody to do as part of the pledge. And that's part of our pledge, those 4 things. And every investor can do that. It doesn't stop you doing deals. It doesn't stop you making money at dealing with people in distress. It just means that everybody gets a level of care, a level of due diligence. And actually, I think it puts you as a business owner in a much better position to say, we genuinely care as you as a human, not just as a potential deal. So that's how it came about. There's some simple training. And then we ask you if you want to join and become a part of the network, you actually uphold those 4 things within the pledge.
I love the pledge. I love that you have a pledge. I really, really am passionate about that, because it's all about taking responsibility and ownership of this mission. But what if I were a property investor who found like a deal right now, and I was like, look, I'm trying to save this person from repossession, but I haven't been through your training. How fast is the training? Do I just do a crash course? Do you just help me through that journey?
Yeah, so that's great question. And there's 2 ways to do it. One is the training is online. You can join the training at any time. It's 200 quid. We're not talking, £20,000 mentorships. But even if you haven't done the training, if you just simply need advice, people can book a consult call with me, and they get me. When someone says, I need to speak to Trish, they get me. So they can book a consult call and go through their scenario, and I will give them pointers, give them advice. And obviously, if they need put in touch with some other specialists, then I'll make sure the investor also has access to the right people to help them do what they need to do.
Love that. Amazing. And how can we connect with you? As in, like, where does it begin? The point of contact, how do we reach out?
I mean, the first thing is the website is a good place to go, and it's just www.repossessionrescue, and it's .uk, not .co.uk. And then we have a phone number. So we have a landline number, which again, people can use. We'll obviously give that to people watching this. And the email address, if you want to email me directly, it's just trish@repossessionrescue.uk. Again, I don't hide behind, yes, obviously I have some people who help with my emails, but when they email, they are getting through to me, and I genuinely do see all the emails that come my way.
And who else can help you in this mission, Trish? Like, yes, property investors who have the money and can buy properties, yes. But how can the wider network help? Like, who else would you love to be connected to, or do you connect with that helps you in this space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on a bit of a mission to try and work with some more estate agents, because the challenge is sometimes that estate agents, I mean, they will understand that someone's being repossessed or is in financial difficulty, but there almost is, in a lot of industries, a don't ask, don't tell. It's not really our business whether they're being repossessed, so we just need to sell the house. But again, I think there's a lot more that the investors and agents can do together, and sometimes there hasn't been as cordial a relationship as there could have been. So estate agents, especially the larger ones, yes, they do often do training around vulnerable adults, but it tends to be around keeping it sort of fairly low key. And the other thing is being attached to some of the larger fund holders who they themselves are buying distress assets. Because when I talk about distress, I'm not just talking about individual homeowners. Landlords are facing significant financial distress at the minute. The number of landlord repossessions has gone up. In fact, it's rising exponentially faster than household repossessions, because the process is slightly different. Because a landlord's property is an asset. And it's like, well, it's not really a big deal if you lose the asset. But if your income is based on your portfolio and you lose because your tenants have been unable to pay their bills, and therefore you're also not able to pay your mortgage, then it's not just your mortgage payments that are suffering, it's your income. So we can't ignore that fact. You know, we can help each other, we can help ourselves, we can help others. I try to keep this really simple because, you know, life is complicated enough. So I just say, if, you know, my ideal would be speaking to some fund managers who know they're buying distressed assets. We're looking at setting up a real estate investment trust purely for that reason. Because again, we can step in faster and give people some breathing space to find somewhere else to live in the meantime.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I just didn't even know something like this existed. I genuinely didn't. Do you think lenders, lenders being aware of this, I don't know, can they help?
I think lenders. Lenders follow, as you know. I also, have trained as a broker, and lenders, as you know, have the mortgage conduct of business, and they do have treating customers fairly policies, and they do have to think about vulnerable clients. The problem is that banks have very few options available to them. If the account is not in good standing, then it's up to the banks to say, can we put this back on track? Can we help this person out? But when you're in debt, you do not qualify for the best rates of interest. You actually get penalized as a result of being in debt because you're considered a bigger risk. And it's always a bit of I often can't understand that at the point when you need to preserve every penny of your income so that you can get back on track and can sort your debts out, you're being charged, 10, 15%, 20, 30%, even on credit cards and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, we do need to challenge and change how we see debt. Because again, debt and mental health go very much hand in hand. And it's not always people who, it's very easy to say, well, these people are useless with money. And mine was very much down to a change in circumstances. And at the time, my mortgage, the interest rate was 14%. Now I'm thinking 5% sounds great.
Well,
right?
Yes. Why is everyone complaining?
Yeah, why are we moaning? But it's relative. Okay, so it's like everything else; it's relative. And again, I think there's a lot that the industry. So there's lots that lenders can do. There are lots that investors can do. And I want to talk to both ends of the spectrum, and say, why can't we do more? What else can we do? If someone wants to purchase the property, give them some time, because it eases people out. One of the things I do, for example, is potentially move people out into rented accommodation, so that we'll cover their move out costs prior to the sale, because it means the house is empty. We're not having to kind of move people all over the place when they've got kids and dogs and whatever, because the impact on families is devastating. Your sense of self is lost anyway, but thinking you may also lose your dog. I mean, I'm a great dog lover. You lose your home and you lose your dog because a lot of landlords won't touch it. And I'm like, oh my God, it just adds insult to injury. And that might be the only companion that you have. And I just think there's a lot we can do then. And that's really, opening up the dialogue to me is what matters. So I'm up for talking to the politicians. I'm up for talking to the banks. I'm up to talking to the whatever, just to say there are other solutions not yet tried. Let's talk about them.
Well, there you have it. If you are a politician and you've happened to stumble across the money honey, Trish is ready. She is game. We are ready to chat. And This is what I'm talking about. This is why I love this show, because I'm here to champion women in the industry. And I wish I had a podcast like this when I was growing up into the industry, back 10 years ago. Because I wish I could see what other people were doing and how they could help me. But this goes way beyond. Like, we're not just here to chat about, your career in property and finance. We're here to change lives. And that's what we call positive pollination at Manuka Media. I love, I never get bored of saying positive pollination, because every money honey I speak to embodies that. Like I attract these wonderful acts of kindness. Like they just come and talk about it on here. So thank you for sharing that, because again, I was not aware of this sort of help. Like I've seen repossession happen, and I guess you never look for this kind of help until it happens to you. And it hasn't happened to me or anyone that I know in my immediate family. But I know how much I love my home and what a safe place it is and the security that it provides me and how comforting it is. And it pains me so much to know that someone has built like this security in their home and then it's gone. Like I just can't believe it. Like, I can't believe that is, like you say, like, I can't believe that just when you need people most, or just when you need that financial break the most, is when it gets the toughest.
It is when
so thank
and
you
it's when
for
you're most
sharing
vulnerable. It's also when you're the most vulnerable. For me, in spite of the fact that I was a mental health nurse, and it's funny because you asked about why you didn't know that about me. Now, a lot of people who don't know me know that I talk about repossessions, I talk about debt, I talk about money, money challenges and mental health challenges. They go hand in hand. For me, it wasn't until I was in my 50s, and this was just a strange turn of events. I'd been in property, I'd had a consulting business as well, in the NHS, and it was a chance conversation with a friend of mine who's a clinical psychologist. And we were laughing in a golf club about paying the bill and calculating the bill at the golf club. And I was describing, my brain doesn't work with numbers very well. I mean, it does because I've used tools to do it. And she asked me some more questions, and I was, oh yeah, this is a problem and that's a problem. And I've always found that a challenge. I've been really good at creative stuff. I know how to put a deal together. I'm very people oriented. I come across as very confident, but in actual fact, you often mask stuff because you get used to it. When you're in debt and struggling with your mental health, that's what you do. You become very adept at masking. You become very adept at making it look like everything is okay, which is actually why mentally, from a mental health point of view, you're the most vulnerable, because to the rest of the world, you don't look vulnerable.
You've got this face on.
You become accustomed. It becomes your method of dealing with the world, is that you are able to put a happy smiling face on. You are able to the rest of the world look like you're coping okay. But this conversation went along, and she said, can I just do some tests on you? I'd like to find out a wee bit more about some of the stuff you're saying, because it kind of strikes a chord with some stuff, I think. And so we did some tests, and it turned out that in my 50s, and I'm still in my 50s, but earlier in my 50s, I was diagnosed with dyscalculia, which is the word version of dyslexia. So mathematics and numbers and concepts of time, I mean, it explains so much in my life, why I was always very much, if I had money, I would give it to other people to make them feel better because it made me feel better. And why I had struggled sometimes with everything in my life to do with numbers. So that was really weird, and it's a very neurodivergent, experience. So there you go. I mean, had I known when I was much younger, that was something I was going to struggle with, maybe my money management, maybe my self-management, my self-awareness would have been different.
That is crazy. Because
it is crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. But again, that's another pivotal moment in my life, because it put another piece of the jigsaw in that up to 50 years prior to that, I did not have.
Well, apparently the biggest diagnoses are happening in people in their 50s, like ADHD, dyspraxia, any kind of, I don't know what to call them, but any conditions that we might have had as a child.
Yes.
You wouldn't have had those tests back then because they weren't exist.
They didn't exist. Yes. So you say I excelled at the things that I'm good at now, which is another key fact. You excel at things like, coming up with ideas, and you excel at reading people, and you excel at those things. But honestly, take me out to a restaurant and you have all the Prosecco's you want, and then we'll just split the bill because I can't work it out.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I love that, because like sometimes, who's been there before and they're going out for a meal and you're like, I'm on water and, a side salad, and then everyone else is on like the steak and potatoes and the Barolo, and you're like, we're not going to split this, surely. And it's just, it's nice to be able to also have, not nice, but it takes a lot of self-discipline and courage to have that conversation with people at the table and say, sorry guys, I'm not going to split the bill because I'm just going to pay for my bit. And actually a lot of people, I mean, I've had cousins or relatives that come to me like, I can't believe it. Last night, she told me that I need to, I was like, what did you say about it? They're like, I just paid it. I was like, well, you're wrong.
Yeah,
Because if
you've got to have some boundaries, haven't you?
yeah, because why would you do something that doesn't align with you and then complain about it later? Like,
Not not
talk
worth it.
about it. Like, don't, it's not that person's fault because they told you something that they thought was right. They thought
Yeah,
splitting the bill is normal, but they didn't have the
yeah,
compassion or the awareness that actually you might not have been enjoying the night
yeah,
just as much as they were.
yeah.
So it is, and that's just a small example about going out into a restaurant. But what
Mm.
about when it happens with like your utility bills? What happens when your phone bill goes up and up and up? How many times have I rang my phone provider said, "Oi, what's
This isn't
going
good
on?" Like
enough.
constantly putting my phone. No,
Yeah,
let's sort something out. I do that with
yeah.
as much as I possibly can. So look, money mindset, money conversations need to be
Mm.
the topic at a dinner table. They need to be
They
topics
do.
at the school. At school, they need to happen more and more often. And I also
Yeah,
do this discussion. I facilitate. I don't know if you've seen on my social media, but I facilitate marital finances and marital
yeah,
discussions during like in our local parish. It happens like twice a year where we do
yeah.
these workshops, and talking about finances in a marital relationship is also really important because
It's huge.
someone's boundary or perspective of how much things should cost or how you should save or how you should spend can really damage a relationship
Yeah,
if you don't talk about it from the
yeah.
get-go. So wow, a lot to have covered here. So thank you
Indeed.
so much for
You're very
being on the
welcome.
show, Trish. How can we connect with you? You said your website and everything, but you're
Yeah.
kind of you're more active on LinkedIn, aren't you? So
I'm on
are you happy?
LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook, and obviously we've also got we've got pages,
Yes.
Repossession Rescue pages on there as well. Obviously we've got a website too. And as you say, the like you again mentioning about the money stuff. I wouldn't say I'm a money coach. I'm not a money coach, but one of the things that I really want to move on is making sure that we do some, let's call it money rehab. When you've been there, when you've been in debt, it becomes just about the debt, and you can lose yourself. And where I lost myself, not it was not seeing myself out of the money.
Yeah.
And again, so that's kind of a big thing about demystifying that, and taking the shame out, take the fear, the shame, and the guilt out of being in
Yes.
financial distress.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope everyone listening, thank you again for tuning back into the Money Honey show today. I know we touched some sensitive subjects and some subjects that might be totally irrelevant to you. It might not have anything to do with you, but if you are in the world of property and finance, you do need to take this topic seriously because you might be a financial advisor or mortgage broker. You need to know about this. You might be in property. Know that you have the power to help people. You need to know about this. And that's why I wanted to bring something so punchy to the conversation, that this is something worth celebrating, because if someone's been through something like this and has done something about it and has made a mission to change other people's perspective or other people's experiences, then that is a true celebration for today. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. If you
Thank you.
enjoyed this episode and you found it helpful, please share your thoughts and positive feedback with Trish. Reach out to her on LinkedIn. If you need her help or you know someone who needs her help, then please, of course, click on the links in the show notes where we will direct you to Repossession Rescue. And of course, if you enjoyed the show and you are a new listener, please remember to subscribe and share. Please share this show with anyone that you feel might benefit from it. And if you actually dare to nominate yourself, if you feel like you have a story, if you feel you want to share your experiences, please don't feel like you have to bring something heavy to the discussion, right? Everyone's story matters. Everyone's journey matters. Trish's story is going to, resonate with someone. Your story is going to resonate with someone else. Everyone's voice can be heard, and this is the safe space to do it. So thank you again for being here with me today. Thank you, Trish. Have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
Wow.